Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Barbara and Ray Alpert Jewish Community Center on the Weinberg Jewish Long Beach campus. My name is Zach Benjamin, CEO of Jewish Long Beach, and it's such a pleasure to be with you all tonight in person for the premiere night of the 2021 Long Beach Jewish Film Festival. Through tonight's film, we're going to explore the fulfillment of one Jewish woman's dream, which impacted a global industry. Throughout the month of this festival, we'll in turn be immersed in the dreams of an entire people steeped in tradition, triumph, tragedy, and challenge from all walks of life and all corners of civilization. And through the coming year, we'll be dreaming together as the Alpert JCC and Jewish Long Beach become one about the future of our community and of Jewish life in Long Beach, West Orange County, and beyond. Indeed, we're pleased to announce the launch of the 2022 Dream With Us campaign, a year-long celebration of the integration of two iconic Long Beach area Jewish agencies, through which now more than ever, we and our Jewish community will serve as a light unto all who call Long Beach and West Orange County home. To learn more, to get involved, and to invest in our community's future, please visit us at jewishlongbeach.org or alpertjcc.org, call us, or talk to any member of our professional team. Meanwhile, stay tuned to email, your mailbox, and social media throughout the year as we weave the story of our impact on our community and provide frequent opportunities for you to come home to the Alpert JCC and the Weinberg Jewish Long Beach campus. Thank you to our generous sponsors, to our fellow Long Beach area Jewish communal agencies for your support and for all you do, and thank you for being part of our journey. Special thanks are due to the Film Festival Committee, chaired by Yael Marcus, for selecting such intriguing and interesting and important films for this year's film festival. Thank you to Alpert JCC Interim Executive Director Deborah Goldfarb, to our Director of Jewish Life and Culture, Dana Schneider-Chanzit, to our Director of Development and Special Projects, Susan Palitz, our entire professional and volunteer team. It's now my pleasure to introduce the President of the Alpert JCC Board of Directors, Dr. Barry Zamos.
It is wonderful to see all the smiling eyes here again at the center. Now, first, I think we should all applaud the members, staff, and lay leaders of the Alpert Jewish Community Center and Jewish Long Beach that have actually guided us safely through this pandemic, allowed us to stay open, allowed us to provide the needed services through ECE, fitness, aquatics, senior outreach, and so much more. This was no small feat. It required much leadership and a lot of work. And I think we owe everybody in this whole community applause for getting us to this moment safely. So with a movie reference, this is not The Last Picture Show. For those of you who are old enough to know The Last Picture Show. Now, I've been asked by Zach to speak and build excitement and buzz around words like merger, hybridization, bylaws. There's no chance that that can occur. Now, for many in this room and the community, the talk about the integration of the Alpert Jewish Community Center and Jewish Long Beach barely registers. But in reality, this really is a remarkable and important moment in the history of our community. And it represents actually more than just rewriting of an organizational chart. We're going to have a new CEO of this agency in Zach Benjamin. There'll be a new executive team that will include an executive director of program development, an executive director of fund development. There's going to be a new board that will convene in January, and there's a lot of new and worthy optimism about the future of this integration. But of course, as we always say, we need you, we need people, we need this place to get busy again. If you've been gone, it's time to come back. For everybody, it's time to rejoin, to volunteer, to attend events and dream. And if you can, contribute and donate to the Dream With Us campaign that's occurring at this moment. Now, be reassured, the Alpert JCC will still remain. It is not going away, but the position of president, my job, will be eliminated. And although I will be co-president next year of this new agency, I will indeed be the last JCC president. So given that this is a film festival, I want to rename my position through movies with the word last in it. So I thought about being Indiana Jones in his last crusade. One option was I could be the last samurai. There's the last king of Scotland. I really, really wanted to be the last Jedi. But in the spirit of quality that we emphasize at the center here and throughout the two agencies, I thought we should pick a movie that won the Oscar for Best Picture. So I'm going to ask the room the question, does anybody know the name of the Oscar for a Best Picture that has the word last in it? The Last Emperor, 1998. That's exactly correct. So The Last Emperor is indeed the name. So in that spirit, this last emperor would like to introduce Yael Marcus, chairperson of the film festival.
Good evening, everyone. Erev Tov, and thank you all so very much for coming tonight. A lot of work went into putting the festival together, putting tonight together. And I would like to thank different groups and people who worked on this. So first, I'd like to thank the committee who worked so tirelessly. We watched, I think, 24 or 26 films. So if anyone from the committee is here, if you can raise your hand or stand up so we can thank you. As you saw on the screen earlier, we had some very, very generous sponsors who made all of this happen. So thank you all very much for your support, your generosity, and thinking that this is a worthwhile and important event. We have staff and volunteers, both at the AJCC and at Jewish Long Beach, who work tirelessly to make every event just perfect. And leading the charge in this case was the Director of Jewish Life and Culture at the AJCC, Dana Schneider-Chanzit, without whom none of this would have happened. So yeah, a big one. And of course, thank you to all of you who came, showed up, bought tickets, showing your support to the J, to Jewish Long Beach, and to our Jewish events here. So before we start, just a couple of announcements. Please make sure your cell phones are off or on buzz so that we don't have to wait for everyone to fumble in their bags to realize when the phone is ringing. Please keep all your masks on. I know it's not that comfortable, but you really need to do that. And finally, this is not a very long film. And at the end, we have a great presentation by Wendy Manasse. So if you would please stay for that, I don't think you'll regret it. So thank you so much and enjoy the evening.
That was wonderful. So good evening. I don't know if anything's going to come up. I'm Shari Nemirow, and I am a VP of Jewish Long Beach, and I'm substituting for Edie Brodsky, who couldn't be here tonight. What a remarkable way to begin our 2022 Long Beach Jewish Film Festival with such an important and fascinating story. Mrs. G is the story of a woman with a dream. Here at Jewish Long Beach and the Alpert JCC, we are also dreaming about all that is possible when we come together as one agency with one goal: to ensure the brightest possible future for our Jewish community, and to ensure that we are able to remain the brightest possible light for all the people of all backgrounds who call Long Beach and West Orange County home. Over the course of the coming weeks and months, you will be learning more about how our agency is helping to bring our community from strength to strength today, as well as our vision for the future, whether through dynamic Jewish life and culture programs such as this film festival, or through our early childhood education programs, after-school programs, and camp, whether by engaging tomorrow's leaders through our Alpert New Leader Forum and Lenzner Fellows Program, fostering wellness through fitness and aquatics, or ensuring the continuity of the Jewish people through advocacy and adult education. We are singularly focused on leaving the Jewish and broader world better than we found it. But we can't do it without your investment. Pick up your copy of the Long Beach Jewish Community Chronicle on the way out tonight and learn more about how we are lifting up our community and how you can make your gift today to ensure that we are able to do so for generations to come. We are so fortunate tonight to have with us a woman who many of us know well. Wendy Manasse is a BFA graduate in fashion design of Stevens College, Columbia, Missouri, who uses her career experiences and network to further her work as a fundraiser, philanthropist, and student mentor cheerleader. Originally from the suburbs of Chicago, she started her career in ready-to-wear. However, women's swimwear was where she made her mark, first at Jansen in Portland, Oregon, and next at Catalina in Los Angeles, later part of Authentic Fitness. Her titles include designer, merchandiser, and ultimately president of design and development. She has worked with Ann Cole, Oscar de la Renta, and Ralph Lauren, and retailers from Bergdorf Goodman to Walmart. Following 23 years of corporate life, consulting, and freelance jobs in the swimwear industry, she founded and designed Quenchwear, a women's apparel company produced in Los Angeles for almost a decade. Among many other community endeavors, Wendy was on the board of directors at Jewish Family and Children's Service, Long Beach, where for 7 years she created and underwrote Runway, the Beauty of Helping Others, a fashion show fundraiser benefiting JFCS. In addition, she has played a part in many events and fundraisers in the community. Please welcome our friend and my friend, Wendy.
I don't go anywhere without my mannequins here. So this worked out really well. Good evening, everyone, everybody here and everybody out there. What an interesting film. I mean, what a roller coaster of a documentary. We saw color, we saw, oh my gosh, stuff. And then obviously we heard the story of Leah as a mother and the vision from her daughters. You probably didn't think that so much could surround something as small and as unimportant as a swimsuit and a cover-up. But the world really is fascinated with swimwear, and so was I. So I've spent 34 years in the fashion business, and as Shari just told you, about 22 of it being in corporate swimwear. It was fun, it was wild, it was intense, it was absurd a lot. But I loved everything about it. The creative side, the business side, and especially dialing into the customer. I wouldn't have wanted to do it. I wouldn't want to have done anything else. So unlike Leah, who was a designer with a vision, similar, maybe you could compare her to like a Ralph Lauren, somebody whose name is on the label, even though it was Gotex on the label. I come from swimwear from a whole nother part. I actually created product for brands. So while Leah was flying in the penthouse, I was in all the floors below her. So there's three things I want to touch on tonight. And though I could talk for hours and hours about swimwear, I did have to write this down. So it's not hours and hours. I want to touch one on Leah, two on the psychology of swimwear, and three, just share some fun inside scoop from my swimwear world, what I call the TMZ part of my talk. So let's start with Leah. She was really a visionary, and I'm not going to go through really and recap, but as we saw in the film, the two biggest things that she brought to the industry was her vision of putting color and prints on swimwear. When she saw those women who were in dull, dreary suits, and also crazy trims, crazy kind of gold trims, and I mean, everything hanging and dangling. And the fact that she really brought matching cover-ups to the swimwear industry, which sounds kind of absurd because it wasn't that long ago, but it was really because she didn't want her women going to other sportswear people. And when she did both of those things, she did them with what's known as engineered prints, which they touched on for a minute. But what that means is that every suit is cut, designed, cut, and sewn to look exactly the same. And I probably don't have to tell you that not only is this a super technical process, this is a really expensive process. Again, because everything has to be exact, which is why Gotex suits were hundreds of dollars, hundreds and hundreds. And those cover-ups were like 2 and 3 times that. So she truly was high-end luxury design swimwear. It was the status symbol of swimwear. So she was brilliant. She was a little crazy. She was a lot demanding, but she was obviously super passionate about swimwear. And she was an artist in her own right and was responsible for taking swimwear from function to fashion and changing the industry forever. I always knew what they were doing because they were a competitor, and basically because she always amazed. I mean, I can look at those things now, just like I looked at them back in the 90s, still completely blown away. Unfortunately, when the company was in financial trouble and sold to Nemirow, which is a huge Canadian company, they lost a lot of their cachet. Today, Gotex is defined really as a well-made, moderate, conservative, with lots of solids company, still made in Israel, but unfortunately nothing like the product that Leah created. Today, it's really about that company making money with the label. So in the late 80s, after more than 6 years at Janssen in Portland, I started designing for Catalina down here in LA. And that was that same time that Gotex was peaking. My specialty at Catalina became taking the Gotex concept of engineered prints, adding a lot of metallics for this lady, and designing suits that women could actually afford. Women loved them, and it made Catalina the #1 swimwear company at the time. And so I've kind of gone through, I have boxes and boxes of swimwear tear sheets. So it was like, what do I want to show you? A lot of the Gotex stuff, they showed you a lot in the movie. But this Daisy suit was actually the cover of Women's Wear Daily, the Bible of apparel that came every day, now only comes digital, of course. But this was the Daisy suit that they talked about in the film, and how Leah was so obsessed with her flowers. Every single one of those daisies put on by hand. Okay. So again, the level that she played and designed with was unbelievable. And then we saw so many of her collections, and everything was so staged and beautiful and coordinated. But what I want to really show you, so this is Tyra Banks, by the way, back in the day, because she did only use top models. And this was one of her engineered prints. And the reason I show you that is because this was what I did for Catalina in 1991. So you can kind of see how this all works, just like Leah took apart the first swimsuit because she had never made one before to see how it worked. Well, everybody re-engineers and looks at how things are done. So what I did was every single suit looks exactly like this, gave the woman the metallic, gave her the bra, gave her the coverage. These suits were basically $60 at the time. And again, like I said, put Catalina on the map. So lots of inspiration from what Leah did, but for the masses. The second thing I want to just chat about is the psychology of swimwear. So when I say the word swimwear, who feels a little anxiety? Okay, and do you immediately start thinking about your body and what its perceived issues are? And this is not just a female thing, by the way. I want you to know, yes, definitely weighted on the female side, guys, same time. And then when you throw your age in the picture, how fast are you really breathing right now? So really, how can something connected with white sand beaches and azure waters or a delicious cocktail while sitting poolside in some fabulous lounge chair be the same thing that brings so much anxiety when we buy it and we need to wear it? Okay, it has always fascinated me while I was in the industry. So I traveled a lot in my career. Research on the world's beaches, because somebody has to do it. Annual fabric shows, huge Lycra fabric shows in Monte Carlo and Lyon, France. Catalog shoots in Hawaii, fashion shows, trade shows, and of course, selling trips to retailers. So much so that printed on my bag tag from American Airlines right now is 3 million miler. Traveled a lot. I bring this up because in those days, before people opened their screens and put on their headphones, seatmates actually used to talk to each other. And so every flight, I had to make a decision. What would I say when I was asked, what do you do for a living? Now, no doubt you're thinking, what would there be to decide? But here is the thing. The minute I said I designed swimwear, one of two conversations would start. If it was with a woman, she would spend the entire flight from LA to New York talking about her swimwear anxieties, her body issues, and the famous, why don't you make swimwear for whatever her issue was. And I'm talking about women of every size and age, because don't for 1 minute think that everybody doesn't have some anxiety about their body. And if it was a man, it usually went the way of the Sports Illustrated swim issue, photo shoots, and models. So while most flights could have played out as a swimwear therapy session, a lot of the times I actually decided to say that I did something else. And I came up with some really good careers while I was flying. The real issue, though, is that it is the only article of clothing that's small, fitted to the body, and exposes a lot of skin. And for two pieces, it's basically bras and panties for the public eye. Swimwear is the most psychological piece of clothing that we wear. And for some, regardless of age or size, it isn't an issue, but for more, it is. So designers play a huge part in that, and so do buyers. Because one could question how a designer in their 20s can design for a woman who's in her 40s, 50s, and 60s, having no clue how, for most, the body evolves. Okay, I have to tell you, my first job at Janssen was designing Missy swimwear, which was basically, I was in my 20s, I was designing for my mother. Okay, you would not believe what my first designs look like. I mean, I basically had her covered everywhere, right? And in like the ugliest thing, because I perceived my mother to not ever be cool in something less than coverage and with lots of stuff inside. Obviously, I figured that all out as time went on. The other thing, which I used to talk to, if I did elect to say what I did to my seatmate, was we would do huge collections, as they talked about in the film. I mean, so many swimsuits every year. It was crazy. But if the buyer from the store was in her 20s, what kind of suits can she really relate to? Now, we're going to assume if she's a good buyer, we have to tell her what sells and she believes. But a lot of the time, those really good suits for women did not get in the store because the buyer truly could not relate to what those suits were. So regardless of today's message that every body is beautiful and every body should be celebrated, swim will always be the most psychological item we buy and wear. And I think there's a book there. Last, some TMZ scoop. Most of this is from my time at Catalina and Authentic Fitness. And I wish I had pictures of these things, but couldn't find any. Okay, my office. It was in the Catalina building, located on Bandini Boulevard, between the 710 and the 5, exits right off the 710. It was a mid-century style building that surrounded a pool. So I had a windowed interior office for the basically 14 years I was there. So inspiring when you're working on swimwear. But what was crazy about this was that we used it to test swimwear. So we would test for opacity. When we put the fit model in the suit, we'd throw her in the pool. Can you see through it? Is the dye coming off? Is it bleeding if there were issues? And what happens, like maybe if it's a new kind of fabric and stretch? Unfortunately, it was torn down, whatever, I think it was like a decade ago, and there's just some regular old building there, but the most amazing space to work in. And while most of my career focused on designing or merchandising for one brand, my last handful of years in corporate swimwear, I actually got to play with a lot of brands. So the breadth of customers, retailers, and price points was huge. As president of design and development in the late 90s and early 2000s, I was responsible for creating and seeing through the production of over a dozen brands and private label and a budget of $140 million worth of swimwear, which today is $220 million worth of swimwear. And that is a lot of swimwear, because I can tell you, which I will in a moment, we were not selling Gotex price suits. So a lot of swimwear going out there into the world. Our biggest customer became Walmart when Warnaco bought Catalina out of bankruptcy, and the CEO decided to give them the Catalina name. And it was essentially the first time a branded label was given downstream, as it's called in the industry. So let's do a little slide here. Oh, he said I pressed it hard. Okay, so while we designed a lot of suits for Walmart, hundreds of millions of people pass through Walmart like a week. The numbers are staggering. I mean, that, but when you really think about this, we did produce a lot of swimwear for them, but my girl here has on the suit that we produced for them, known as the Rib Tank. In one season, I wrote purchase orders, signed them for 1 million yards of fabric. This very cool, very soft, super stretchy fabric. And we produced 3 million suits for them. Okay, keep that in mind when you think about the documentary where they were like, oh, Leah was making 100 of those suits. Quite a different play there in the swimwear industry. One could question what would happen if the stretch was off. What if the fabric, the dye didn't stick? What if the elastic was too big? What if it was too small? So for such a small item, it was extremely technical, and it was obviously the difference between sales or not. This suit retailed retailed for $11.99. Okay, so kept a lot of lights on, and this was my baby because Walmart and private label truly was my baby the whole time. The other interesting fact about this suit was how were we going to make 3 million units? This was just of this suit. This wasn't for the everything, all the other brands. Turns out that 1992 NAFTA came through so that we could pass things back and forth from Mexico. So our CEO decided to build a plant in Tlaxcala, Mexico, which was about an hour and a half of a very bumpy ride southeast of Mexico City, next to the Pampers plant, where 5,000 employees, most of them sewers, because it was so state of the art back then, sewed our swimwear. And the reason I bring that up is because everything traveled along the top of the building. Well, not the top, because it was huge. It was like football fields, but above the sewer. So if the sewer was sewing the the armhole elastic, it would literally drop down in front of her. She would sew both arms, or both arms and legs, pop up and send it to the next sewer. And I went down there a lot of times because none of these were trained sewers. Okay, we had to train them, which in a lot of respects is good because they learned exactly how we wanted it. But you can imagine the pool of people that we attracted. It was not in some like the middle of New York City. Anyways, the plant was really, truly one of the most amazing things I ever got to see and work in. And the way that it functioned and produced, I mean, we literally shipped 3 million suits a year for years. On the other hand, we also did Ralph Lauren swimwear. And I always like to show this little yin yang thing. So this was a little hand crocheted bikini. I won't even tell you, I mean, I seriously will never forget this. Lots of craziness about this bikini. Found a woman, Ralph found a woman, her team, whatever, who actually does hand crochet work. We made 15 of these at $500 a pop. Now, for Leah Gottlieb, this probably was not a big deal. But after you have made 3 million of these at $11.99, you can imagine, right? I mean, seriously, my experience in the world of swimwear really crossed every gamut, which, again, super fortunate to be able to talk about and share everything that I've learned from that. Not only, and Ralph was obsessed about little bikinis. So one year we did the leather polka dot bikini for him to go with his sportswear. And then we did an all beaded, those are solid beads, like almost on top of each other, hand beaded. And this is Kate Hudson back in the day. But to just show you how crazy, and to keep the whole string bikini concept going, his wife, Ricky, all she lived in was string bikinis when they went to their place in Montego Bay, Round Hill, Jamaica. And so I would go to Ralph's apartment, I say apartment, on Central Park and work with Ricky to decide what suits she wanted every holiday before they took off. Amazing woman, actually hand wrote a thank you note to me. I think that's pretty cool. But anyways, obsessed with this whole bikini thing. Second largest customer after Walmart was Victoria's Secret. So back in the day, Victoria's Secret never did swimwear, intimates, big time. Turns out Warnaco was responsible for the Miracle Bra, Miracle Bra, which I don't know if any of you women know that, but back in the day, top selling bra by far, up in, everybody looked great. Everybody. So being that our CEO was also CEO of Warnaco, she was my boss's boss, I'll tell you about her in a minute. She was like, you know, Wendy, we need to be doing Miracle Bra swimwear for Victoria's Secret. So I got all the Miracle Bras from Intimates, and we produced their hottest swimwear ever. Seriously, tens of millions of units every year. A phenomenon that basically put Victoria's Secret on the map. Then every designer wants to have their suit in Sports Illustrated. And so when I was at Janssen, I got my wish. The cool thing about this is we actually produced this suit, because back in the day, 95% of those suits were never made. They were just purely made for the magazine. And now, just to add a couple of people that I thought were super interesting in my life in swimwear. One's that CEO. She was the only female CEO of 2 Fortune 500 companies. She was also the 1993 on Fortune's toughest bosses list of 1993, along with Steve Jobs. So a lot of what Miriam was saying about her mother, some really wildness in that fashion world. This woman off the charts, but just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the key thing about her was that we would dress her dog, Ebit, for earnings before interest and taxes, in the latest swim prints every year, because Ebit would come with her to visit when she came all the time from New York. Got to work with Oscar de la Renta, very cool guy, very cool guy. And then, of course, there was Ralph Lauren and his team, and you want to talk about truly absurd. Nothing could ever be perfect. Do you know how many threads needed to be in the mallet of the pony player that's embroidered on every Ralph Lauren item? Okay, these people counted the threads, and we're like talking on a swimsuit that's stretchy. So quite an interesting life I led. And then there was working with my dear friend Ann Cole. Ann Cole actually was one of our brands. And like Leah, it was her name on the label. It was her vision. An amazing woman whose dad, Fred Cole, actually introduced fashion in bathing suits and created Cole of California in the 30s. She is credited, while I worked with her, for creating the tankini. Thank you, Anne, right? 2 pieces. You can have all different kinds of bodies. Yeah. And it's incredible how many times we put the tankini out there and could not get anybody to understand it. But we did not give up. And obviously a key silhouette today. And her favorite thing was naming colors and naming collections, because nothing's more fun after you get done with doing something is that green? No, that has to be pistachio, or it has to be whatever colors. And last person who I can't leave out is truly my husband, who's going to go, what is she saying? Okay, David is not Armin. Okay, Armin was next to Leah, right? Whatever. David, no. He was support, and he was truly Mr. Mom. And I'm telling you, I could not have had the career that I had without him by my side. So today's swimwear industry is so different from my time in it. Big manufacturers with lots of brands really are few and far between today. While new small businesses started by influencers, surfers' girlfriends, models, and women who just love swimwear increase online every day. I cannot believe how many brands or labels there are of swimwear today. And while swim and fashion are still my passion, my job now is really to pay forward. And so as Shari said, I coach, mentor, lecture fashion students at Cal State and LBCC, because nothing is better than getting paid for something that you love to do, and I love to do it. So before I take questions, it wouldn't be right if I didn't tell you what trends are going to happen in swimwear for 2022. So let's just do that for a moment. So seriously, when you're getting ready to shop next spring, don't forget these slides. Chat Low with this new funky polyester that's got like little spikes all over it. Tom Ford, who's been around for a long time, an incredible designer, used to do Gucci. He's doing glam with his triangle bra. You can actually buy a whole suit, or you can choose to wear it with your satin joggers. Same thing with Brandon Maxwell. We're seeing lots of swimwear tops as part of sportswear. Chanel's showing for 2022 layers. Don't forget your chain belt, ladies, and your black and white little spectators. Stella McCartney's got us in some crazy cutouts. Isabel Marant just decided to put the triangle bra over a t-shirt. So if you want more coverage, feel free to layer. Hold on. Etro. Really, this is just a gorgeous little boy short and swim top, along with some very high platform shoes and great bag. Laquan Smith, who just showed at the Empire State Building, making his statement with feathers and some sparkle. And for the guys, because we don't want to forget you guys, the bucket hat. Very trendy for spring 2022. Prada showing it with the little retro top and boy shorts. Don't forget your black socks and your dress shoes. Isabel Marant, the whole matchy shirt, shorts, shirt. And then he's got those cute little socks on with his sandals. We have Fendi going tie-dye cool here with another pair of very cool pink sandals. And Cavalli, for those of you that feel really good about your body. We've got a little trunk and a matching robe. Leah would be proud. And that's all I got for you. So I don't know, we have a few minutes if you want for questions, and if you're Zooming, if you're online, you can type in Q&A or in the Q&A box, whatever that language is. Does anybody have any questions? I covered it all. Cool. Oh, wait, we have one.
Okay. That was amazing about her, but what did her daughters do? Did any of them follow in her footsteps, designing or working at all in the fashion?
I mean, Miriam definitely ran the US world of Gotex, no doubt. And I'm familiar with Miriam because obviously being in the US. And Judith, you know, obviously tried with her line because that was just the natural thing to do. But the reality is no, they did not. Miriam definitely rolled Gotex to the end until it was sold and financially just what, you know, couldn't stand. And Judith, I think it was just really something Judith sort of maybe felt that she had to do. And then unfortunately she passed away. But it was all Leah. I mean, it was in her blood, head to toe.
When husbands go shopping with their wives and they're looking for bathing suits, and the wife turns and says, "So how does this look?" I'd like you to give the answer that the husband should give.
That is a really good question, Barry. I'm thinking you really, first of all, I empower women to decide if they feel really good about it themselves. And I know that, I mean, asking the husband is what? Like I know when I ask David, what do I look like? I mean, what's he really going to say? Right. And so therefore, I encourage you maybe to throw it back to her and say, honey, how do you feel in it? I think that's a good one. Yeah, don't answer, it's too loaded to answer that question. So are we good? Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for doing this for us. We are so grateful for you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you would like to watch any of the other films, let me know, and I will make sure you get your links. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.